Hi there. Today I want to give you a full tour of the garden and show you everything that's growing, our successes, but also some of our failures. First of all, this is a full view of our garden. It is mid-June here in Southwest Michigan, Zone 6A. We have had a very unusual spring. It's been really hot some days and very cold other days, and I think that has affected the growth of some of our plants. Over here in our first garden bed, we have peppers, tomatoes, and other random things. I feel like this is one of our beds that's struggling the most, but let me show you what we have. To start out with, we have a borage plant over here that is not doing very well. I grew that one from seed, and I've had success with it in the past, so I don't know why it's struggling. Here we have some zucchini that's coming up. It looks great. I'm also growing peppers, and I'm not very happy with what's going on right here. Um, so most likely I'm gonna have to just uproot these and get plants from the farmer's market. So I would consider this probably one of our uh, failures, I guess. So anyway, my pepper plants are not doing very well. So in between other plants, we also have some herbs. This is some basil here, which is okay. It's doing okay. Some of our basil struggled with the really cold days. And then we also have oregano here, which is doing well. And some flowers. I believe these are marigolds that are getting ready to bloom really soon. And I'm excited about that because I've never grown those before. Our next three beds are full of tomato plants. And as you can see, we're using this trellis system to grow our tomatoes up. And we are going to be pruning them. Well, we have been pruning them and training them to grow up this trellis. And we have lots of different varieties. Most of these are cherry tomatoes. And I have some things interplanted with them, like basil and other herbs. This is my black cherry tomato plant. We loved these last year. And we have a lot of little tomatoes already, but they are not ready yet. I'm growing celery in between some of the tomato plants. In other places, I'm growing basil. I'm also putting some onions in between. Just anything that I can wherever I find space. We have 4 raised beds. Our other beds are in-ground beds. These 4 beds have a lot going on as well. In this bed, we have carrots over here, which are doing really well. But we are experiencing some problem over here with what I believe to be cutworms. We haven't been able to find any yet, but we do see evidence that they are around, and every day they just eat a little bit more of our plants, so that's very discouraging. And in between my carrot plants, I am growing, I believe this is arugula, and we also have some lettuce growing. Over here, more carrots, and I think this is lettuce or dandelion that's growing in between the carrot rows. Then I have a few other tiny tim tomatoes that are just producing so much fruit. The plants themselves are very small, and that's okay, but they are loaded with fruit. And on the edge of this bed, I have beans, and those are going to grow up this trellis. The type of beans that we are growing this year are yard-long beans. We grew them last year and we really enjoyed them. We really thought they were easy to cook with and very easy to pick because they're so much easier to see than just the regular green beans. Over on this bed, we are growing onions, cilantro. This is our second planting of cilantro. I already harvested a whole bunch of cilantro, and some of the cilantro that bolted we already removed. So we have onions that have been growing for a while, and also some tiny seedlings that I just transplanted a couple weeks ago. And even in this small bed, I see evidence of cutworms affecting our plants here. We are also growing green beans in the back along this edge of the bed. Again, the plan is for them to use that trellis system behind them and grow up to the other side. This is one of our beds that we cover with netting because we have leafy greens here and we want to protect them from caterpillars and other things. And so far it's been going really well. We harvest from this bed very often. So in this bed we have lettuce that's growing very well and has been very productive for us. We also have kale, dinosaur kale, red Russian kale, and Swiss chard, those kind of things that are growing all over this bed. So this is our other bed that is covered with netting because we are trying to protect it from caterpillars. And last year we grew cabbages, but we had some cabbages that we just couldn't eat because they were infested with cabbage worms. But this year they are doing so well and they are looking so good. First, over here we have some collard greens, and the small little plants are radishes are growing. And I don't know if you can see these holes. We are having issues with moles and voles in our garden this year, and it is just incredibly frustrating to be dealing with those. We did not have this problem last year, so we are still figuring out different things to do. As you can see, we have kale behind the collard greens over here, and then we have cabbage in the back. You can see the cabbage heads forming and they are growing very nicely. And I don't know, I'm guessing maybe in a few more weeks we'll be ready to harvest those. So we have a good amount of cabbages in this bed. And then we also have some Swiss chard growing up here in the front. And again, all the little radish seedlings. Over here in this garden bed, we are growing celery. This is my first time growing celery, so I don't really know what it's supposed to look like at this time. And then we also have chamomile growing in between the two rows of celery, and they are already getting ready to flower, so those are looking great. And I think the celery is looking good too. I'm hoping they're okay, but we'll see. The rest of this row is planted with onions. I think they're growing very slowly. But we also, like I said, because we have issues with moles and voles, there's just a lot of activity in that bed. And I don't know how much it's going to affect the onions. In this next bed, again, I have a ton of chamomile plants, a whole row of chamomile plants. And then over here on the other side, I planted radishes. And on the left side, I planted some cabbages. But again, we are having issues with moles and voles. I don't know if you can see over here these cracked mounds. That's just new activity because I try to come out here every day and you know, just step on the holes again and try to repair what they have damaged. But I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if things are going to grow well. We have set up some mole traps. We've had them for a few days and we haven't caught anything yet. So we will see. We are growing some determinate tomato plants over here. These are Roma tomatoes. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 Roma tomatoes over here. We are not pruning those. That's why we have them in cages. And those are the last of our tomato plants that we have here. In total, we have about 45 tomato plants, and I'm excited about our harvest this year. As you can see, we have this massive trellis system over here with nothing climbing on them yet. That's because we have all kinds of squash plants. Starting in the back, we have butternut squash and pumpkin. Then in this next one, we have acorn squash and spaghetti squash. And then this last one here, we have different types of cucumber that are growing. So here are some of our squash plants that are starting to grow. Some of them are doing really well, and then we are going to train them to grow up this trellis. Here's another area where I'm growing acorn squash, and in between the two plants, I don't know if you can see, there are these tiny little seedlings growing. This would be lettuce, and then the other seedlings in the back are beets. So hopefully we can utilize that space as well. And these are the cucumber plants that are still so tiny, but I think they're doing well. These are the cucumber right here. And as you can see, I have other seedlings growing here. These are more radishes that I'm growing in this area. Well, this is what we have so far growing in our garden by mid-June. I hope you enjoyed.